So what are we today? We're the 24th today. This is the evening of the 24th. Another late shift, so we rocked up to the gym about 9:45 at night, and very simple workout today. Just some declined bench press, and went back to the sort of reverse hypers with the bar on my back, and then I did some core at the end, which there was no point filming because my phone was zoomed into my crotch the whole time, so it just showed my crotch bouncing around while I was doing different crunch variations, which was fantastic. So look, this was one of those sessions where it was the end of my week. I've just done 5 or 6 days in a row at work, so getting tired, rotating rosters, shift work and all that. Now starting to take its effect on me sort of 3 weeks after coming back from leave. Wanted to go into the days off, which are tomorrow. I wanted to go into the days off with something a little bit productive to take away from that, and that was probably, for me, considering my look at training for the last little while has been squat, bench and deadlift. I thought I'd need to get something to add towards those towards the end, so did the bench, and just with this decline bench, obviously there's a bit of a decrease in range of motion using a lot of your lower chest on things like that, so just a variation to help with my overall just normal flat bench press. I think you can usually lift a little bit more weight here without as much stress on your muscle and your joints. Well, at least what I find. So we hit that. We do a warm-up set with the bar, and then we do a set of 10 with 40 kilos, and then we do sets of 8 with 60 kilos. I think we do 4 or 5 sets of 8 with 60 kilos, and then a set of 12 with 40 kilos at the end. It's like a little bit of a drop set, so I basically just get up, take the weight back off, lie back down, bang out the 40 kilos again to get some fatigue in the muscle. But look, there's nothing much more I want to talk about training-wise. Just more, I think, for myself, a theme that was going over in my head today, and that was fear. The theme of fear, fear, anxiety, a little bit of anger, things like that. Because I've had a few things happen this week. I mentioned my apartment flooded. Backed my car into a bloody pole leaving the gym after the last workout. But it just gets you thinking about how you deal with these adversities that pop up in your life. These little inconveniences, whether they be big or small, or or how they impact your life, how you bounce back from these. And it reminded me of a slightly larger inconvenience that happened maybe 6 or 7 months ago. I was looking after this young man who would have been, I think, 18. He got hit in the head with an axe out bush somewhere. Someone hit him in the head with an axe, and he got a traumatic brain injury from it, got a large brain bleed. So he ended up getting helicoptered out of the bush up to our hospital. Into our critical care environment. Came out of theatre after they evacuated a bleed. They had to remove part of his skull, re-staple it, and fuse it back on to get rid of this bleed. And came back intubated with a breathing tube on a ventilator. And it's a couple of days later, and I rock up and I'm looking after him. And today's the day where we extubate him, so that means we take him off the breathing machine, we take the tube out, and we wake him up from your medically induced coma. So we just turn all this sedation off and we wake him up. And this boy apparently is a lovely boy. His mum's there, although he doesn't speak much English, so that was just one thing to be wary of. So we wake him up, he's doing all the right things, he's being appropriate. We're asking him to take a deep breath in, do a cough, making sure he can clear his airway. Can you squeeze my fingers, lift your arms, are you strong, are you weak, will you, are you sort of a little bit more compos mentis? And he looks like he's passing everything, so we turn the sedation off, we extubate him, great. his mum's like, oh look, I'm just going to go back to where I'm staying, I'll go get him some shorts and that so he doesn't have to wear a hospital gown. I go, yeah, nah, no worries. She leaves, and then old mate's like, oh, pain, I've got pain. Fair enough, you've been hit in the head by an axe. I go, alright, I'll go get you some pain relief. So I walk away for a minute, I come back and I walk in and I get some pain relief, and he just looks at me. And he's just, pupils, completely dilated, looks at me, crazy look, angry look, fighting look. And I go, oh, here you go, mate, I've got your pain relief for you. He just looks at me, sitting in the bed, just looks at me, starts screaming at the top of his lungs, and then jumps out of his bed. Now, this is a man in an boy man in an ICU environment where he's got lots of lines connected into his his veins and his arteries and things like that. He's got a catheter in, and he's got a few lines in, and he literally jumps out of his bed, rips these lines out. So he's covered. So he's starting to bleed now. Rips a bung off his central line, which is there's very high risks for. I won't go into the risks of that, but let's just say there's very high risk of bad things happening when you do that. And he jumps out of bed, and he's got these stockings on, these compression stockings on that we use for people that are bedbound, so you don't get blood clots. You see people wear them on planes and things like that, so you don't get blood clots, but they're very slippery. So he jumps out of bed, rips out all these lines, he's got these stockings on, and then he starts slipping over. As he's slipping over, he's hitting his head on the ground again and again and again. And now I, run in there and I'm trying to help him up, and then he shits himself. Literally, physically loses control of his bowels, and he shits himself. So he's standing in a pool of his own feces, and then he keeps sliding over and hitting himself. And as I'm trying to get other people in, and we're all trying to help him up, then he starts swinging at us. He starts punching us, trying to kick us, and every time he tries to punch or kick us, he falls over and he hits his head again. So no one can get near this boy while he's hitting his head, and this all happens in 40 seconds to a minute, very quick. And what I can deduce and what we can deduce is he's just he's had a traumatic brain injury, and even though he was all right initially, throughout that couple of minutes we've gone to go get pain relief for him, his short-term memory is probably gone. He's forgotten where he is. He's forgotten what's happened. He's just in pure fight or flight mode, and then he's had a little bit of a psychotic break. So yeah, he starts punching me, he starts kicking me as I'm trying to hold him up to stopping him moving his hair. He's really gunning for me, he charges for me, tries to tackle me against the wall, yada yada yada. We end up getting security in because this bloke is just super violent and super aggressive after a couple of minutes. No one can get near him, he's going to keep hurting himself, he's a risk to himself, he's still actively bleeding as well. So we get security in there, we all pick him up, drop him on the bed, fix the bleeding, fix everything that's wrong, and then we have to resedate him and just put him back in a coma for another day because he's at too much risk to his own health, to be allowed to keep doing this. Like, he'll kill himself if he keeps acting like this, and he's clearly not of sound mind while he's doing this. So we ended up having to resedate him, re-intubate him, and then I come out of that and I go to write down my notes on the incident of what happened, and do like a risk report, and then I notice I'm like, oh yeah, my left hand's swollen. Why's my left hand swollen? Bugger, he must have punched me or kicked me or he knocked me up against something, so I have to take the rest of the shift off. I can't do anything. They send me to a GP, I get an x-ray. He's broke a couple fingers, but the hand's not broken, but the hand's like, it's like, what happens when you blow a glove up as like a balloon? So if you get like a rubber glove and you blow it up like a balloon, that's what my hand looked like. Obviously, a lot of cricketing injuries. I've broken a lot of fingers before, so even the slightest knock on my fingers, sometimes they really swell up. And I get sort of sore ligaments and tendons around them. But he ended up doing that, and broke a couple of my fingers. And it was quite honestly it was quite a traumatic experience. Anytime you get sort of assaulted at work, it sets you back. But that theme of fear sort of came into me where I had an option, right? I had broken fingers, so I had a workplace injury, but I didn't have a broken hand. So I was like, broken fingers aren't really an excuse. Like, yeah, it's my writing hand, but I'm like, I can do other things. I just can't write notes and write down observations essentially. So I sit there and I think about it. I have my X-ray the next day. I have the day off work, so I've got a workers' comp consult with a GP. And then I decided I'd rock up to work the next day. And the GP asked me, he's like, look, how many weeks do you want off work with your broken finger? He's like, you can get up to 8 weeks off work if you want through workers' comp. And I said, no, mate, just clear me and tell me I'm good to go back to work tomorrow. He's looking at me, he's like, really, dude? He's like, you can get 8 weeks off paid at home, you don't have to go into work. And like, they're like, this patient's done damage to your hand, and like, it's compromised your ability to work. You can have 8 weeks off. I go, no, just clear me to come back to work, and I'll talk to my manager. I have a chat with my manager the next day. So it's 2 days after the incident. And, I'll go, yeah, I'm right to come back to work. And she goes, really? I go, yeah, I'll strap my fingers together and I should be right. And she goes, you can't strap your fingers together, COVID rules, you got to be bare below the elbows, you can't wear any rings or anything on your fingers, etc, etc. I go, yeah, no worries, I take the strapping off my finger, I go, okay, I'm good to work. And she goes, you can have 6 to 8 weeks off under workers' comp if you want. This patient has broken your fingers whilst you've been assaulted at work. She's like, I would think clearly, even for your mental health, you'd want to take at least a week off or something, would you? I go, nah. I'm right to work. Just put me on light duties, and I'll be the float for the shift, and I'll just float around and help people out with whatever they need. So we do that, and I go back to work and I continue to work then. But I think the reason why I did that, and the reason why I did not to take the 6 to 8 weeks off, was because of fear. I knew that in my head, the longer I had off work, and the more time I had by myself to think about that incident, would lead me to probably quitting and moving to a different area, and not going back and working in the ICU and working in a different, different ward, or working within a different health service altogether and moving interstate. Because I know in my mind that I will replay that over and over and over again, and the longer I get off work, and the longer I stay away from work, the more anxious I will be towards work and towards returning to work, and then the fear will be allowed to grow and to fester and to manifest itself into something that's not completely irrational, because I've been assaulted at work since, but something that would be, largely affecting my ability to go in and do a job and earn a living and things like that. And, it's just probably making me more scared of people in general. So I had that incident, and that was sort of the theme for me, especially, every time I get hit with a setback or something like that, I just think to the last big setback, and that was a big setback. So I think getting assaulted by a guy who's psychotic and covered in shit and covered in blood, and him only breaking your fingers, is not the worst thing that can happen to someone in the world. And when I look at my apartment flooding this week and bumping my car into a pole and having to get that fixed and stuff like that, like, it pissed me off at the time, but after about 10 minutes I go, yeah, but it's not as bad as when that kid tried to punch me while he was covered in shit. So yeah, that was the theme that I was thinking about today as I was walking into the gym and working out. But I won't ramble on too much anymore. That'll be a story that I'll think about quite a lot, I think, for the next few years anyway, until something bigger happens, because something always does. Life will always throw challenges at you, and you have to choose how you deal with them. Life's not going to make you react negatively to something. You choose how you react to something. So that was the theme of my thinking today. Cheers, and see you tomorrow.